On behalf of CWAG, I would like to congratulate my very good friend, the Attorney General of Cross River State, on this well-deserved honor. I think it couldn't have been put better than how Marcus Green has put it. He has been there with us from the beginning, and we are grateful. You are doing a great thing for Nigeria. I remember when we were trying to convince all the Attorney Generals of Nigeria that this was a good project. He took the battle to the meeting of the Attorney Generals of Nigeria, convinced them to give us audience and to listen, and they did. And today we have so many requests from different states. We are trying our best. We are going around. I think in 2 months' time we'll be in Ogun State. There are so many those states. Everybody is lined up, and I'm sure that we'll go to other states. I know that the CJ from Osun State is here. I believe that we will discuss eventually. So we are really grateful for the work that you did. We'll give you an opportunity to say a few things in reaction.
Thank you, Chief Anthony Idigbe, SAN. Of the MC by trying to establish the protocol, because I believe she already did that. So permit me to stand, on the protocols already established by the MC. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of myself and my family, when I say my family, I mean my family, the Ministry of Justice, Cross River State, I want to say thank you. Thank you so much for all that you have done. I learned a long time ago from my first principal, Otumba Ishola Adebanjo, SAN, in Lagos, that 2 good heads are better than 1. So whatever I have done so far should not be attributed to me, but to the gentlemen and women that I met in the Ministry of Justice. Very experienced people, humble, and for me, who has never worked in the public domain, if they did not give me the cooperation they did and get what we want. For us lawyers, learning is a continuous event. An address, a keynote address presented by the Attorney General of Cross River State on an event or symposium organized by CWAG, African Alliance Partnership, on investigation and prosecution of transnational crimes, e.g., the wildlife trafficking, held at the Transcorp Hotel, Calabar, 25th day of April 2018. It is indeed a great pleasure and delight to welcome you all to this one-day symposium organized to fashion the best ways to fight the global menace of wildlife. As at other times, I seize this opportunity to appreciate our partners, CWAG, AAP, for choosing Calabar as a venue for this workshop, knowing Cross River State remains one of the world's biodiversity hotspots. Wildlife trafficking, e.g., and the Sekopan Zoo, where endangered drill and Sekopan monkeys are kept and protected before being reintroduced to their natural habitats, as the penalties provided under the law are ridiculous. Through the collaboration of the Nigerian Immigration Service and other institutions, traders in endangered species are being intercepted and handed over for prosecution. Only last year, the Nigerian Immigration Service in Calabar seized 3 container loads of 140 species of snakes and 600 species of other animals imported into Nigeria. Arrest, prosecution, and conviction of wild traffickers with appropriate sentences are a major deterrent to poachers and traffickers. It is expedient to stop trafficking in order to conserve wildlife for posterity and ecological balance, And we can do this by building an effective criminal justice response to wildlife trafficking, by strengthening the legislative framework, ensure that effective laws are in place to deter, investigate, prosecute, and convict wildlife offenders. Once again, I welcome you all to Calabar, even as I urge the participants to actively engage in the business of this symposium. I also wish us all fruitful deliberations and urge you to make out time if you haven't already done so.
All the way from San Diego, please a round of applause for him. We also want to recognize the presence of Mary Allen. She came all the way from the office of the District Attorney, San Diego. Please a round of applause for her. She's going to take our next presentation. We also have Marisa Ditilio. She also came from San Diego. You're welcome. It's good to have you here with us. And to take us from the next presentation on our program is on the second page of our program. Before we go to the next presentation, we want to also recognize the following: Dr. Garba Abari, DG National Orientation Agency, who is represented by Mrs. Florence Osang. Please a round of applause for her. We also want to recognize the presence of Commissioner for Environment, represented by Okon Isoni, a director. Please a round of applause for him. We're also aware that
beyond that, I'm here representing the Honorable, the Chief Justice of Nigeria. So a singular honor will not do. I'm representing a man whom the customary court bow unto, magistrates courts bow unto, high courts bow unto, Sharia courts bow unto, Court of Appeal bow unto, Sharia Court of Appeal bow unto. So it would be certainly more than a singular honor. It is a multiple honor being called upon to represent such a man. But I have a problem. I think I should be able to take up the problem. The problem is, am I fit enough to represent such gargantuan mortal? I should have a solution to the problem, because I do not believe that there's any problem without a solution. The problem is that I'm finding myself in an office, a small man in a big office. He has two options. One, to contract the office to meet with his size. The other is to expand himself to fit into the big office. I'm talking about the Honorable, the Chief Justice of Nigeria, GCON. To put me in that kind of office, I don't know. Maybe I would need your advice. Do I expand myself to meet up with the office, or I contract the office to meet up with my size? Approach. We have this quota to consume wildlife. Ghana, you have this quota. Other countries, you have this quota. But the problem would be, how would they be enforced? Would there be so much honesty of peoples to be limited to the quota? Would it not be subject to abuse? So in that respect, I would say that it is better not to attempt than attempt what would bring more disaster. The wildlife itself, we have more often than not overlooked their danger. When they become dangerous to human existence, what happens? Of course, they would have to be eliminated. And if eliminated, would we not go wrong, or would we not go contrary to the laws for their preservation? Or let us not cast our mind so much back to the Holy Book, that talks about man having dominion over all other creatures, all other living beings. Would man having dominion mean using them as one would wish to use them, commercializing, trading, consumption? I think it is necessary at this stage to expand the quota of these fundamental human rights to extend to fundamental animal rights. Because I think that's what informed the law on prevention of cruelty to animals. But have we agreed whether these wildlife, whether they should be consumed or should not be consumed at all? What is the purpose which God gave them to us? Whilst we are protecting them, are they also protecting us? Because if you come by, if a lion breaks in here, a lion breaking in here, nobody would be safe. Yet, they say we have a duty to protect them. What duty do they have to protect us? Even the dogs you have in the house, I'm told that when they put to bed, and you don't feed them fast enough, they can grow wild and consume anybody at sight. How then are human beings protected from them as to be protected from human beings? Not forgetting the economic importance of these animals. Because most of the experiments in terms of medical know-how are done through the animals. What the animals consume and will not die, then that will be prescribed for human beings. What is dangerous to the animal will be dangerous to human beings. Would their protection mean that we cannot use them for these experiments? In other words, I would want to leave for us a thought for food. I'm not talking about food for thought, but thought for food. That when we are into this wildlife protection, there should be some reservation. Because they were meant for a particular purpose to be served. Otherwise, the Lord Almighty would not have given them to us. And when we talk about protein, animal protein, how do we come by the protein? If we do the sociological theory approach avoidance, do it, don't do it. Genesis chapter 1 verse 28 is all about that. God created man to take dominion over all other beings, creeping, the birds, animals. What is that dominion? Or what and what do that dominion entail? Is it only protecting them? Preserving them? And whether, like I had suggested, the quota system allotted to several countries will not do it. That is what I've left for us as a thought for food. I say it again, not food for thought, but thought for food. At this point, I welcome you all to this very important, auspicious occasion. Because deliberating about, we are deliberating on something concerning nature. We have to put in everything, our best, so that nature will be natural to us. But then, we must not lose our balance. That was his workshop as a forum, as a medium to strike the balance between these conflicting ends when we talk about wildlife. Let me reiterate, I bless the day when this idea was conceived, and the day will ever remain blessed. And you too are blessed. Thank you very much.
Another round of applause for His Lordship, for his well-rounded speech that actually addressed every issue of wildlife which affects us, even the part that is beneficial to us, directly beneficial to us as human beings. Thank you so much, my Lord, for that wonderful presentation. Thank you so much. And before we go on to the next presentation, it's good for us to observe some of the HSC rules we have. We note that there are 3 doors out, exit doors out of this hall. Please note the main door at the back and then the 2 doors in front. In the event of, we have said our prayers, so we are not expecting any unforeseen things happening. But in the event, please don't be involved in the stampede. Stampede in event of accident causes most of the deaths that occurs and injuries. Please be calm and note where the ushers direct you to. Please note the exit doors. And then we have our tags which you are given at the point of registration. Please make sure you have your tags on your neck. And if you have a neighbor that does not have the tag is important because we use it to recognize and know the people that are part of us. Because if you didn't register, that means you're not a part of this and don't have a right to be in the hall. We need to be sure that all the people sitting around us are people that should validly sit with us. And if your neighbor does not have a tag, please point out to the ushers so that they will do the needful. And then, please, we are enjoining everybody to take care of your bags and your phones because we know that bags and phones look alike. Please take care of yours and be sure you keep it very close to you. Before we move to the next presentation, we want to recognize the presence of Dr. Mrs. Rose Ohiama Ugbe, who is the Dean of the Law Faculty, University of Calabar. Please, a round of applause for her. She's always invited and honors our invitation to our event. You're welcome. We also want to recognize the presence of Barrister Peter Bassi, the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Justice, Cross River State. We also want to recognize the presence of Mr. Akwaji Ogbang, who is the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Climate Change and Forestry, Cross River State. You're welcome, sir. We also want to recognize the presence of Mr. Patrick Tete, the Permanent Secretary, Forestry Commission, Cross River State. You're welcome, sir. And last but not the least, we also want to recognize the students from the law faculty. We recognize you. Please, if you're a student here, please stand to your feet. You are highly, highly, highly welcome. We appreciate our younger generation because we know you are the one that will project the ideas to the next generation. Thank you so much for being a part of us. And to take us in the next presentation is Mrs. Mary Ellen Barrett. She is the Deputy District Attorney, San Diego. Mary Ellen Barrett received her undergraduate degree from Georgetown School of Foreign Service and her law degree from the University of Connecticut. She has been a San Diego County Deputy District Attorney for 28 years, prosecuting a variety of cases from theft to murder. Ms. Barrett currently prosecutes human traffickers, rapists, sexually violent predators in her office's Sex Crimes and Human Trafficking Division. She is the Human Trafficking Team Leader and is currently assigned to San Diego Human Trafficking Task Force. As part of her duties, she provides 24-hour on-call support to law enforcement in the field. Ms. Barrett presents on the issue of human trafficking to civic and community groups as well as law enforcement and fellow prosecutors. Ms. Barrett is the chair of the San Diego County Regional Human Trafficking and Criminal Sexual Exploitation of Children Advisory Board, which is responsible for developing best practice protocol to effectively combat human trafficking. And you may ask why human trafficking. Human trafficking is also related to wildlife trafficking, and her experience in this field is what she wants to give out to us. Please, ladies and gentlemen, your lordships here present, a round of applause even as she comes forward.
Thank you everyone for being here, and on behalf of my colleagues and myself, we'd like to give a sincere thank you to CWAG and to the African Alliance for giving us the honor of coming here in this beautiful place to exchange ideas on transnational crimes. And I would also like to say thank you for the incredibly warm welcome that we have received from the moment we touched down in Nigeria all the way through today. We're truly humbled and honored to be here with you. In San Diego, if you've been there, it's a beautiful place. We have a problem. We have a problem with human trafficking, that is the buying and selling of human beings, either for sex or for labor. According to the United Nations, human trafficking is up-and-coming crime. I'm sure you're all well aware of this. It's the second largest criminal enterprise in the world, and they say it's $1 billion industry worldwide. In San Diego, we recently had a study, and it was only on the sex trafficking, and they found that it's $810 million a year in San Diego. In San Diego, we're about less than 1,000 square kilometers, and about 1.4 million people. So we're really not that big, and to have these numbers is staggering. So we knew we had a problem and then had to figure out what to do about it. Initially, we thought it was only people from other countries that were coming into San Diego, because San Diego is right next to the border with Mexico, and we're not that far from LA, where a lot of international visitors come and then end up in San Diego. But in fact, the study has shown 80% of those that are trafficked for sex trafficking are actually born in the United States. And that tracks across the United States. It's about an 80% rate. So when I'm talking about, of course, the sex trafficking, we unfortunately do have child sex trafficking. We have labor trafficking in our county, both, as I said, involuntary domestic servitude, that is people working in the house, but also we have many agricultural fields in San Diego. And we know that those in the agricultural fields are being trafficked. Recently, they found we have illegal marijuana grows in part of our county, and they found there were a number of foreign nationals that were cultivating that under terms of, well, the human trafficking. In addition, what we are seeing is this debt bondage, in that the trafficker will arrange for the transportation of the person or group of people to San Diego or to California, but then once they get to California, all of a sudden now they owe more money. And now you have to work for me because you owe me more money. And when I say human trafficking, I mean restricting someone's liberty, not giving them the chance to live their own life the way that they want to do it. And in California, our law says we get to take it from the viewpoint of the individual. So we did have a case of Thai nationals that were here, and they thought certain, well, we got to take into account their cultural background and why they wouldn't walk out a door where you might think somebody else would. So in order to combat the crime, we realized that working in silos wasn't working, because the traffickers move throughout our county, they move throughout the state, and they move interstate, and they move international. So each police department in San Diego County working on their own was not effective. So the government in San Diego, the County Board of Supervisors, formed this task force in 2015, so it's pretty new. And by forming a task force, we used all the different people that we could from the different police agencies, and we're all co-located. We sit together. I'm assigned out there. I have an office out there. So we're there daily. We have meetings every 2 weeks, which everyone that is working on this issue comes to, so that we can exchange ideas and information. We found that, say, San San Diego Police Department might know about what is happening in one area, but the same people are operating in San Diego Sheriff's jurisdiction. And by sharing information, we can build better cases. In addition, we have built in this cross-border cooperation because we need to work with our counterparts on the other side of the border, down in Tijuana and down further into Mexico. This is a list of everyone that is participating, and it really is every agency in San Diego, and that includes the federal agencies and it includes the state agencies. We are the repository of all information, and we're trying to be for human trafficking. That way, you can make the connections. You know who is out there and what they're doing. We have even the Internal Revenue Service working for us for the taxes, because certainly nobody's paying taxes on any of this illegal activity. We have the school police with us because we know we need to get into the schools to educate the children about the predators that are out there that would have them be trafficked. So I mentioned our proximity to the border, and we do have human trafficking going both ways, in that we thought initially it was all they were being trafficked from Mexico up into San Diego. And that's not exactly true. That does happen, but also we are seeing U.S. citizens being trafficked down in Mexico. There is an area in Mexico where prostitution is basically legal, so that's why our girls are going from San Diego down into Tijuana. And as you can imagine, it's hard to coordinate police actions between the two countries. We also have a number of Asian victims who have come in, they're being both labor and sex trafficked, because it's in our massage parlors where you would go to get a massage and stuff, other things are going on. Many of those are coming in from, as I said, Asia, and one problem that we have seen is that when the police make contact with a victim, she may want to talk, but she probably won't talk that first day. You normally need to let her get comfortable and to begin to trust you. And these victims, as soon as they are out of police custody, are out of the country. We are tracking them. It was within 12 hours of one time she was contacted in San Diego, and she was back home to Asia within 12 hours out of LA. And in our agricultural fields, we're having trouble convincing the victims to come forward to talk to law enforcement because of their fear of corporation. We have no power to compel any evidence from another country, which makes sense, but because this is also fluid, it is becoming a problem. So the investigations start any way we can think of. We have a national tip line, which actually does work. If anybody calls in and they say, this is what I'm seeing in San Diego, the people at the national tip line will call back to San Diego. We have proactive investigations in that the police will actually go onto the social media websites where people are being advertised for sex, and we'll try to figure out who perhaps is being trafficked and find out who the juveniles are so that we could go out and attempt to rescue them. Our tips have gone up the more we're out talking about this. Our tips have gone up astronomically later on. So what do we see when we see human trafficking? Well, we see branding. And if you look here, it's a barcode, and I've obscured the number because if you looked up that number on the slaveregistry.com, it would say, I don't know what I did, but it would say Jane Doe is the property of John Smith. There we go. And then you can't really see this, but it says loyalty. And that's the way that the traffickers are identifying their property. It's either their names or some symbol. Another big symbol is the crown, because the trafficker is the king and the head of the organization. Here are some more tattoos. Again, you can see the crown, team tip, because the trafficker will convince his victims that they are all one team, that they are all working together, and that's the team that she's on. Mac, and then if you can her, all those who, So we know what he's up to. We know where his mind is and what he's thinking. And these come off of their phones. The phones are a gold mine for evidence. This did not come out well, but it was a Facebook conversation that lasted about an hour and 15 minutes. And from the beginning of the conversation to the end, he convinces her to go to Vegas with him. Within less than 20 minutes, he knows where she's living, who she's living with, that she's not happy with her situation, and that she would like to earn more money. At the hour mark, they're talking about having children. He says, let's get some money first and have a boy later. And she is believing this. She is buying into this. This is the danger of social media. Fortunately, the mother discovered that this was happening, and so they did not end up going to Vegas. One thing we have seen is that these groups will be in a city for a little while and then move on. So they're in San Diego for a while, and then they'll go to Vegas and work for a while. And then it might be up to LA, and then up to San Francisco and back down, and they start all over again. In the advertisements, when they advertise on the websites for sex, a lure is they say new to town, and they get more business that way. So the more they move, they're always new, correct, to town, but also it's harder for the police to follow them, which is why we needed to begin working together. Again, like I said about the phones, the text messages, they're pretty blatant in my opinion. I used to prosecute narcotics cases, and they would have all these code words for narcotics. They don't really. Here, you can see there's one, it says, I'm getting a good review. We have found that there are review sites for these sexual services that you can put in her phone number, and I'll say her because it's normally a her. Put in her phone number, and the review will come back and say, very nice, clean, I would recommend her. And then the buyers know where to go and where to go again. This is another one that came off of somebody's phone. I have obscured some of the word, but it was he did not refer to her well. And he maintained that he was just friends with her. He didn't know what he was doing. He was just giving her a ride. What's a boy to do? And you can see from the text messages, I have a date in National City for $200. National City is just on the other side of our border with Mexico, and what they call the date is when they're getting together for the sexual services for $200. And then here's some information about the sex buyer. So with this information, we were able to say, no, we know you know more. And then with her saying I gave all my money to him, we were able to go forward with the case. So I mentioned social media. It is huge in the recruitment of girls. They will post pictures. I was able to speak to some prisoners who had admitted being traffickers, and one of them told me he looks for the material girls, the ones that want all of the material things, and then he knows who to target. We've also been told by them that they will try to friend someone, and they'll send out, hey, I love your picture at Instagram or on Facebook. I love your picture. You're beautiful. And then just keep going from there. And it's a seduction. It's the luring. It's the, I think you're wonderful. No one else thinks you're wonderful. You should be with me. And then the kids will accept and will begin friending them. If they send out 100 friend requests and one gets accepted, that's a pretty good odds for them. And what do you have to do? You copy and paste. It takes almost no effort. And then I said they're posting pictures of money, and if that's what a victim is looking for, if that's what she needs in her life, that's what she's going to be attracted to. We can get things from Facebook. It's actually a California corporation, but some of the others, as I mentioned, are international corporations, and I think like Backpage tried to move things offshore. That's a huge problem for us, and I'll be listening for ideas on how to combat that, how to help cooperate with another country to get the evidence that I need in my country, in my county. Here's what I was talking about. They'll also do it by text, sending out, are you ready to make a move to improve? That's going to involve sex trafficking. And then, oh, you can't really see it, but it's a picture of money in stacks saying how much money he is making. And then there's a link. You click on the link, you get to see more pictures of stuff, more pictures of how successful he is, because that's the lure that they will use, that we'll be together, you'll be doing this for a little while, and then a little while we'll have money. I just did a case, and she said the plan was to have their own house and to go back to college. And she had been working for him for 4 years. 4 years of staying every night in a motel and moving on, and all the money being transferred to him. There were times where she was left without food, where she was left without a way to pay for either the motel room or a way to get away. So in the past, we would see the victims out on the street, walking the streets. And when I started doing this about 5 years ago, that's how it was in certain areas of our cities. You would just see the cars cruising around and cruising around as the sex buyers made their selection as to which one they wanted. That's not the way it is occurring in San Diego anymore. It's on the internet. And Backpage is up there. It is a site that was used to post multiple ads. They were making millions of dollars off of this, posting underage, and by underage it's under 18 for us, and overage, 19 years. Talking about, they tried to say it was a dating website. It was just women seeking men. I just wanted to go to dinner with someone, but that's not the case. If you look at it, let's play daytime action. That's not an offer to go to dinner. So now we're in the post-Backpage world, and there is a fear that everything will go onto the dark web, which I have not had the training yet on, so I'm not quite sure how it works, but it's harder for the police to get in and to find where it is, so we're going to have to figure that out. And I've already talked about the trends that we're seeing post-Backpage. Task Force, how successful are we being? So now we're not in silos, right? We're working together. Well, I think we're doing pretty well. I did mention we got a Human Rights Award for the International Association of Chiefs of Police. We got that in 2016. And for 2017, we have the stats. We have 76 arrests, which are up from 37. We're also looking at called the demand side, the sex buyers. We have 58 victims who were rescued. But when you think about it, $810 million industry, it doesn't sound that much, but it's going up. We're doing better, and we're trying to build capacity to help even more. We've been out talking. 73 training presentations, which is up 70% from the year before. We'll go out and talk to schools. We'll talk to civic groups. We'll talk to really anybody that will have us talk there. Because the more we talk to people, the more we educate them on this problem, the more they're going to see it, and the more they can report it, and then they can stop it. That's what arresting alone, human trafficking. I'm sure you all know. You can't just wave a magic wand and have it be done. We have to address stopping the supply of the people going into it, and we have to stop the demand. We also rely very much on our non-governmental organizations, both faith-based and not faith-based, because I'm a lawyer, I'm not a social worker. I don't know how to care for any of these victims. I don't know how to help them. But our partners, our NGOs, they know, and they can, and they do. That was a big sea change. Before the task force, we didn't work well together. It was very antagonistic, but now we've broken down those barriers and we're able to work together, which not only helps the victim recover, but also helps me have a witness at trial. Because if I don't have a witness at trial, I don't have a case. And we're getting into the hospitals. We found that many of these victims show up in the hospitals, and the hospital staff don't know what they're looking at. They know what they're looking at. They don't know what to do about it. Hopefully we'll have a protocol coming out fairly soon from one of our major health providers in San Diego. I think it would be where I came here, but it isn't yet. I'm going to use that as a model for other health systems. So the feds came up with a plan: prevention, protection, prosecution, and it's the 4 Ps. Because again, arrest alone isn't going to do it. We need to prevent the crime before it starts. We need to protect the victims. We need to take out the perpetrators, and we need to work with everyone. No entity can do this alone. We all have to have all hands on deck. Here's some prevention training with school. These are school teachers and principals and representatives, so the schools know both what they're looking at and what to do. Protection, of course, the police. Prosecution is us, not Jesus, but Marissa and I. And partnerships. We have international delegations, and they ask how we're doing. We're combating human trafficking, and then we get to learn from how they're handling it wherever they are. And some very good ideas have come out of that exchange. So I'm very happy. And this is our task force commander, Fernando Huerta, who runs it. Thank you.
Please, another round of applause for her. Thank you. Thank you so much for that presentation. And we want to take the questions and answers now, but because of our time, we may have to go on to the next presentation, which will be from, or we'll have next presentation from the NCF. We are having Mr. Adedayo Memudu for the next presentation before we have our coffee break. They are still setting up for a coffee break, and we don't want to lose that time. Please, let's have Mr. Adedayo Memudu for the next presentation. Okay, I believe he stepped out. So let us have, before the next presentation, we want to call the representative of the Attorney General of the Federation, Mr. Felix Otta Okoje, to come and give a few address to us. I know he has a few words to tell us. Mr. Felix Otta Okoje, he is the Secretary, Federal Justice Sector Reform Coordinating Committee. Mr. Felix Otta Okoje. He's representing the Attorney General of the Federation. Okay, I believe he stepped out also. We also recognize the presence of Barrister Ali Baba Maman, the representative of the DPP Federal Ministry of Justice. Please, a round of applause for him. We also want to recognize the presence of Mr. Ubodoga Joyce Omotayo, Mrs. He's from the Edo State Ministry of Justice. A round of applause for her. Thank you. And to take us to the next presentation, is he here now? Who? Mr. Felix? Please, okay, for us to take the next presentation before, that should have come after the coffee break, is Mr. Adedayo Memudu from NCF. Please, he comes forward. Mr. Adedayo. His profile is from the Nigerian Conservation Foundation. He was sent by the Director General to come and represent him. Please, let's look at his presentation. He's talking about the combating wildlife trafficking in Nigeria.
Good morning, everyone. I will be speaking on the status, issues surrounding combating wildlife trafficking, with a particular reference on Nigeria and looking at the West and Central African. I'll be talking on how best we can collectively combat wildlife trafficking issues, not only in Nigeria, but as well as in West and Central Africa as a whole. We all know that wildlife trafficking has to do with international illegal trade or trafficking in wildlife, wild animals, plants, dead or living. It could be any part thereof, and or any of his products from the source through the transit regions and to the final destination where it is being in use or it is converted for other purposes. We all know through this as well that yearly we lose millions of wide populations of animals and plants arising from a number of human-induced causes, particularly arising from our activities and interaction with nature. How do we now look at combating the wildlife trade across Nigeria and West Africa? The trade is ranked to be the fourth trade in terms of commerce after drug, human trafficking, and trade in arms. And you all agree with me that after habitat loss, biodiversity, the totality of biodiversity, wherever they occur, they are threatened by illegal and overexploitation to meet the ever-rising demands in world global markets. The target species include, for example, elephants. We all know their ivory tusk is being made use of in jewelries and some other things. We also look at the pangolins for their precious scales. Pangolin is now critically endangered wherever they occur, and their range continues to diminish on a yearly basis due to overexploitation. We equally look at rhinos, particularly black rhinos and hippopotamuses, wherever they occur. People harvest them for their horns, also sharks for their prized fins, leopards for their beautiful skins, as well as reptiles such as crocodiles, pythons for their skins for use in leather industries. Sea turtles are critically being endangered due to overexploitation for their eggs and oil, which are believed to be used in traditional medicine. And great apes such as chimpanzees and gorilla the population continue to come down across their range, while several other precious native tree species are being overexploited and harvested. Status of illegal wildlife trade. We'll be looking at what happens to them in Nigeria and across Central and West Africa. And according to a 10-year report gathered and released by Traffic Central African Republic, Central African Office, from 2004 to 2014, we have more than 1 million pangolins which are traded every year, and also between 35,000 and 50 elephants are poached every year as well, and approximately about 28,000 sea turtles also disappear on a regular basis, while in the last 25 years, the wholesale price of ivory in China and US markets continue to increase from US $5 to about $2,100. And it's on record of the reported cases, more than 1,000 rangers, park rangers, whose duties are meant to protect all these wild plants and animals are being lost on a regular basis. And as we speak, we don't have any single trace of chimpanzees wherever in Gambia, Burkina Faso, Republic of Benin, and Togo. They have all been wiped off. Among the major drivers of wildlife trafficking include poverty. We all know of the nexus, the connection between poverty and our interaction with environment. The very poor people who are mostly found around where most of these natural resources are, particularly the endangered species, they have the knack and they are being motivated to go after this and supply the illegal trade and trade routes because they are poor. They need to make ends meet. That is why every intervention effort must be targeted at improving the local livelihood so that we discourage them from supporting what is illegal. Also, we look at governance. how equipped our government institutions and political will is almost near zero. Despite laudable efforts that have been put in place, we still lack the required political will to make pronouncements to protect all these endangered species wherever we still find them across their range. And also demand, particularly from the US and Chinese markets, the demands for the endangered species and their products continue to increase on a yearly basis. And the insatiable appetite for people to actually meet these ever-growing demands is on the increase. And the poor perception, people lack relevant knowledge, and they are not sufficiently aware of the dangers that overexploitation, continued illegal trade in all these things, particularly poaching, pose to our continued survival. We should all remember ourselves that most of these, what the nature has provided for us is for the benefit of humanity. Any unsustainable utilization on our part and our failure to sustainably manage them wherever they occur will actually spell grave dangers for us. I must be honest with us and to point out that not all aspects of the trade is illegal. There are some that regulations and the regulations regard. The impacts of wildlife trade issues cannot but be overemphasized. Here are a list of them. It can lead to overexploitation because of the increasing demand for wildlife, consequences on health and safety as well. Illegal wildlife trade is one of the avenue to destination countries where wild animals and their products are being made use of. We must look at the necessary equipment to help us. There isn't a proper mix of, or a combination or integration of many of these together to effectively address what we are talking about. Also, we must also seek to enhance benefits and increase incentives arising from the trade in wildlife that are legalized. Those that are legalized, we must encourage people by increasing the benefits and incentive so that they are discouraged from actually fueling the illegal ones. Also, there must be effective deterrents to wildlife trafficking and eradication of illegal wildlife markets, as it's been done in some parts of Central Africa, particularly in Cameroon and some Central African countries there. People go out there to destroy the markets. Are we equipped to do similar thing in Nigeria? If we must create the necessary deterrent, if there are no markets to ensure or guarantee where these illegal wildlife are taken to, people will be discouraged, as many of them will end up being a waste. Also, we must continue to encourage and promote information sharing and knowledge transfer from those people that have been able to effectively tackle the fight against illegal wildlife trafficking. We must learn from them what the success story is in that country with a view to localizing them here in Nigeria. Also, we must organize a capacity building for people to be sufficiently equipped to be able to play their active roles in this regard. And our fight against illegal wildlife trafficking must be all inclusive, from the local communities right to the policymakers, so that not one of the major stakeholders is left out in the fight. Let's look at the status of illegal wildlife trade in Central and West Africa to know that if Nigeria seeks to actually combat this, it cannot do so in isolation, but it has to do so in active collaboration with other countries where illegal trade activities is not only active, but is of grave concern as well, because Nigeria is not only a source country, it's also a transit country as well. There are some facts and figures to support this, and we have it displayed on the screen. About 22 countries of West and Central Africa are home to a rich collection of what we have as biological resources, and many of them are termed biological or biodiversity hotspots that we all know. And Central Africa is caught in the crossfire of growing tensions, while Africa is in the middle of flood and food and water shortages. All these actually promote poverty that are one of the main drivers of illegal wildlife trafficking. We can look at the category, the African, the Central Africa, and in the West Africa. The population in millions of some of those things that are trafficked. So, the scale of illegal wildlife trade, sales and seizures, we have been able to talk about the fact that illegal wildlife trade is the second biggest threat to species after habitat destruction, to the extent that many of these species are now extinct. We can look at arrests, cases of arrests that are reported, also seizures through the information sharing that there is an ethics form, particularly to monitor elephant poaching across West and Central Africa. And we can see the number recorded for Nigeria. Unfortunately, the thing is not showing properly. Nigeria is second to the last before Sierra Leone. Only from 2010, 11, 12, or through 15, we only made 22 seizures, which is largely not compatible with the number that pass through the country. Then in terms of financial implications, it has already been said earlier that the volume and the financial implications of illegal wildlife trade is enormous. Then the legal trade in wildlife, we can see those that are permitted and regulated by different laws and regulations. Are those permitted and who's sustainable that can be sustained into the future under the legal trade. The illegal trade in wildlife, we all know, is well organized and is possibly linked to other organized crime and terrorism. Large volume horns, live animals as pests, and other products, particularly skin and things like that. We've been able to talk about the underlying causes, increasing prices, increasing network demands, and you now have an organized set of people that are into this business as well. It's difficult to track them, and it's mostly well coordinated. Some enabling factors, perception of high profit and low risk, and that's why there must be effective deterrent, not only to discourage people, but to prosecute them at all levels. You look at low detection, many of them go unnoticed because we lack the necessary equipment, and there must be, that is why we also talk about the need to collaborate, not only on the national level, but across the regional and international levels to detect most of these things. Then there are weak border controls. That's why I spoke about the implications on security. Also, you now have better transport infrastructure. Many of them look at big vessels and they hide most of these products among the legal products they are transporting. And if not based on tip-off or information sharing or through intelligence gathering, many of them may go unnoticed. Then corruption as well. Because of what comes to the people, particularly the major players there, it is always very difficult to track them. Other problems and challenges, lack of interest. Many of those contrabands are there that are opposed to wildlife. People hide them there, and people are not particularly interested. They don't know what we stand to lose as human beings if we should allow this trade to go unchecked. Then lack of political engagement. How often are we engaging with other national governments across the region and across the continent to be able to tame the people that are into this business? Then capacity. Lack of strategy and collaboration. We must come to a situation whereby there must be national implementation action plan to actually track, not only track, enforce, with a view to combating illegal wildlife trade. And there must be moves to make this particular trade less lucrative as well. How illegal trade might occur. People evade customs, people conceal, they falsify documents, particularly the volumes and the number that are being trafficked. And also they not only forge, they falsify documents as well, all tied into one. The trade chain, we can see, you have the source, which actually are the main people having where the environment where these wildlife or animals or plants and their products actually are found. And you have the source country where they are majorly sourced. You have the transit countries, people where they move them to before they send them to international markets. And you have the end market, that is the consumer country, where these things are changed to different form of products and where they are now released to the global markets. The dangers of illegal wildlife trade, we have seen that it threatens biodiversity, and that's why it's another main threat to biodiversity after habitat loss, spread of infectious diseases, lack of benefit for general public. Only very few people that are into it actually profit at the expense of the masses. We can see we need to look at how organized they are. You have the West African connection, people sourcing for parrots, pangolins from the main source countries, as well as vulture and some other products. They have people actively involved in other parts of the continent who help them not only locate the source, but they transport them to where they are eventually ready for international markets. People now share information across the country, across the continent, and that is why we say we must encourage multi-agency collaborations that not only focuses on capacity building, but exchange of information. There is need for everybody to come together, particularly all the major players, so that we can effectively address these menace across the continent. Yeah, in conclusion, it may be difficult for us to actually protect every facet of the wildlife and wherever they occur, but there must be a strong aim for commitment on a long-term basis so that we sustain the commitment and we sustain the fight. Not only
I think we should write our questions so that we don't forget. We'll take the questions once we come back from coffee break. We'll take the questions when we come back from coffee break. So write down your question, as we have seen how wildlife trafficking is affecting our society and how we should all hands should be on deck to fight it, because it may originate from one country, it will affect us one way or the other, and there is nothing good attached to wildlife trafficking. So we all nations, all international communities, Nigeria as well, every one of us, even as we have come here, awareness is being created so that we all join up to ensure that this menace is tracked and we don't degrade our biodiversity. Thank you so much. Please write down your questions and we'll take it. And before we go for our coffee break, I want to recognize the presence of Ambassador Babatunde Nuruddin, who is the Nigerian Permanent Representative to the ECOWAS. Please, a round of applause for him. Thank you. So we'll go for our coffee break now. Please, once you pick your coffee, please, I enjoin you to come forward quickly and sit down so that we can start even while we are having our coffee. Remember, we would want to leave here by 5 o'clock, before 5 o'clock if necessary, if possible. Please, let's go forward now and have our coffee. Ushers will direct us as we go forward. Go to the back. It's just at the back of the hall. Please, the ushers, as the ushers call your table, please, let's go and take our coffee and come back to our seat. Thank you very much.